Hello there, welcome to lesson number 1 in our series on using FluidDesigner for 3D printing to create Objet. In this lesson we're going to show you how you can use a Nurbs Surface cylinder to create an object. So if you start FluidDesigner up, first thing we need to do is to go to Learning Projects Objet, and we're doing lesson 01. It's a Nurbs cylinder bowl. And I'm just going to start the screencast key, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. Now this is the object that we're going to recreate in this lesson, and one thing to note, if you've done quite a few of our lessons in FluidDesign and this isn't your first lesson, this menu system at the moment is different from the FluidDesigner menu system. This is in fact the Blender menu. Now we can close this Blender menu by clicking the Blender icon here and then just clicking the button next to it, and we're back to the FluidDesigner menu. Now generally we would recommend you stick to using the FluidDesigner menu. It's got more than enough functionality in it, and it's just not as complicated as the Blender menu. The Blender menu is great for really experienced users, not so great for beginners. But in this instance, the object that we want to use, this Nurbs cylinder, is on the surface menu. Well, if we go to add, there is no surface menu here in FluidDesigner. So easy enough, we just click on this button and switch to the Blender interface. So let's start creating this object. First of all, it says add surface Nurbs cylinder. So as you can see, we've got a few more options here, and one of them is surface, and we're going to use this Nurbs cylinder. Now if we just go to view and oh gosh, where is it? Not used to using this one much. View selected, yeah, so if I zoom in, that's the one, that's what I was looking for. If we go to view and view selected, you can see we've got a cylinder there, but with the cylinder highlighted, if we press the tab key, you see what it has. Like Bezier curves and Bezier circles, this object has got a lot of control points around it, around the cylinder, which you can manipulate to reshape it. Okay, so it isn't just a simple cylinder. Yeah, it is, as it says, it's a Nurbs cylinder, so it has control points. Now I'm just going to press the tab key to come out of that. Now our object at the moment is pretty small. It's only 2 by 2 by 2 millimeters. I'm just scrolling back out to show you the finished object. So the first thing that we need to do here is to scale this object up so that it's this kind of size, and we're going to scale it up from 2 millimeters to 200 millimeters. So we're going to give it a scale factor of 100. So with the Nurbs cylinder highlighted, we press S on the keyboard for scale. Now I could move the mouse out and scale it up, and as you can see, the current scale is about 30 in the toolbar here at the top, but I'm going to enter in a value of 100. Okay, so I've scaled it by a factor of 100, which gives me a new size now of 200 millimeters. Now whenever you scale in FluidDesigner, it's always a good idea to do Control A straight away and apply that scale and reset the scale. If you don't do that, you could end up with printing problems. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to modify this Nurbs cylinder. Now I'm not actually going to do too much in the way of modifying it. I'm just going to pull these two sides down. Okay, so to edit anything in FluidDesigner, you've always got to go into edit mode, so we press the tab key on the keyboard, and if we look at the finished object, what we've got to do is we've got to select this control point here and we've got to pull it down. Now if we want a symmetrical size here, what we should do is we should look in this transform panel here. If you look at the Z value, as I move this up and down, the Z value changes. So if I move this side down to, well, I've got it at 54 at the moment. I'm going to type 60 millimeters, 60 mm, so that will just move it slightly. So that's probably 60 millimeters up from the grid is what that value will be. And then if I go round to the other side, and if I select this control point, again I could move that down, but in order to get this in the same position of the other side, what I should do is to type 60 mm there. Okay, now you don't have to do that if you don't want it symmetrical. In fact, looking at now that I look at the object a little bit better, this side is actually dragged down as well, and these two centre bits have dragged even more. So yeah, let me move this side down a bit, and yeah, that's a bit more in line with the finished object. And we'll move this one down. We'll move it down to 0, actually, to z equals 0. And we'll go around the other side. We'll select that control point there, and we'll set that one to 0 as well for the z value. Okay, so that's a little bit more like the finished object here now. Although I should say this is probably a little bit higher in the finished one, so a little bit more like that. Not absolutely important, it's the principle of what you can do here. So any of the control points around the object, you can drag them in X, Y or Z direction and reshape them to any shape that you want. Now when you're happy with the shape that you've got, what you've got to remember is that anything that's a Nurbs or a Bezier is a curve. And we can't print curves, and before we can do further manipulation in terms of putting holes in them, we do need to change curves into meshes. So what we're going to do is, if we close down the Blender interface and go back to FluidDesigner, the way that we always convert a mesh into a curve into a mesh in FluidDesigner, we always go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh, and you'll see the colour change. So what we want to do now is put some holes in this object. Well, first of all, it's usually a good idea to sort of go to View and view it from the front or from the side, so that you've got a better even perspective of it. And then we just magnify it, make it a bit larger there. Now I'm probably not going to put all the holes in for the finished object, we'll just do a few. So again, we want to edit this, so we need to press the Tab key on the keyboard. Now as you can see at the moment, we're in face select mode, so we could highlight a face, press X on the keyboard and delete the face. Highlight a face, press X on the keyboard and delete the face. Highlight, press X and delete the face. Now that's the slow way of doing it. The quicker way of doing it is to hold down the Shift key and select a lot of faces at the same time, and you need to try and do this evenly, and you need to try and make sure that you're accurate in what you're selecting. Okay, so I've selected them there with generally with one gap between them, apart from here because these are smaller. And so now we can press X on the keyboard and delete those faces. So we can delete a lot of faces in one go. And then we could just go round the object, and we just could keep doing this. So hold down the Shift key, select multiple faces, just keep going round, stick to the pattern you've already got, and I've just lifted my finger off the Shift key as I rotate this, and just keep going. The more you select, the quicker you'll get the job done. And it's not going to match up, is it? Oh, that's a bit of a nuisance. I didn't check it before I did this. So I'm just going to delete those faces. As you can see, we've got to the position where we've got two faces here on this side, so the pattern didn't quite work out. It's probably because I left two there. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to go back and start again. It's the principle of this that's important. I shouldn't have actually left two in the middle there. That was my mistake. Or what I should have done is, if I'm leaving two in the middle there, I should have gone part the way around this side, part the way around this side, and had my two not selected on the back face. That's what I really should have done. My mistake. But anyway, the idea is okay. So let's just come out of edit mode now by pressing the tab key on the keyboard. And what have we got? Well, at the moment, if we look at this, it's just a shell. It's just a shell, so what we need to do is we need to give this shell some thickness, because we can't print a shell. And the way that we do that in FluidDesigner is in the Properties panel. This is the Properties panel. We go to the Modifiers icon, and what we're going to do is to modify this shell by adding a Solidify modifier. And if I just open the window up and just zoom in on here, you'll see what happens. As we change this thickness, you'll see it applies a thickness to the shell. Now, I've applied a thickness of 10 at the moment, and this value here is also important, offset -1. If I go back to 0, that offset of -1 means that the thickness is going on the inside of the object. If I change this to +1, the thickness will be applied on the outside of the object. And if I enter a value of 0, the thickness will be applied evenly on the inside and the outside of the original shell. And you've got to decide for yourself which one of those options you want. Okay. Now, once we're happy with the thickness, to confirm it and apply it, we need to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh again. So Tools, Object Tools, convert to a mesh, something you use all the time. So now we can delete the original object, X on the keyboard, and delete it. And the one that we've created today, I mean, we wouldn't want to print it because the pattern isn't quite right. Really ought to go back and do it again, but I'm not going to. What we need to do now is to save it. So we'll go to File and always go to Save As in FluidDesigner. Just go up the menu system and look for My Projects, and we're doing Objet d'Art, so it's My Projects Objet d'Art, and it's Lesson 01, it's the Nurbs cylinder bowl, and you save that as a Blender file. Now you can't print Blender files, so what you need to do is to go to File and Export, and we like to use Wavefront's OBJ format for printing. And if I just go to the desktop, I can save Lesson 01 Nurbs cylinder bowl as an OBJ file, so I can export it to the desktop. And then we always recommend that before you try and print anything, you always go to an application called Netfab Basic, which is free. You can download it from the internet, and if you go to Project and Open, and if you go to the desktop, we can open that Lesson 01 Nurbs cylinder bowl. And what Netfab will do, it's a mesh analysis tool and a mesh repair tool. So what we do is we go to Extras and Repair Part. And if I just move the panel across, you can see what's going on. If I click Update here, these are what to look for. We haven't got any border edge problems, we've got no orientation problems, no holes. We've just got one shell. But Netfab has triangulated the mesh. These lines here, which create triangles, two triangles, these lines going across have been added by Netfab Basic, and because we need triangles to print. So if we run automatic repair and execute it, just check Update again to see that nothing's changed there, and apply the repair and remove the old part. And there's your repaired. I mean, it hasn't done any major repairs to this one, it's just triangulated it. So what you can do is go to Part, export it as a wavefront object to the desktop, and so the file Nurbs cylinder bowl repaired, that's the file you would send to the printer. Now it should be said that all of these Objet d'Art objects that we're going to do in these series of 10 lessons, they're all pretty large, and they will be quite expensive to print at today's prices, these sorts of objects. So you do need to consider that. But anyway, that's the end of this lesson. Thank you.